Today's episode is brought to you by Omio. Omio is a travel booking platform that makes planning a journey in Europe and North America effortless. Just enter your travel details and Omio will magically give you all the train, bus, flight, and ferry options for your journey. It's never been simpler to book your first real vacation for 2021. Best of all, using Omio saves you time, money, and that's a winner in our books. Omio wants to help you leave your house this summer by offering 5% off your next booking. Just head to omio.com and use the code OMIO5 at checkout, valid until July 31st for new users on all modes of transportation. It's just the pick-me-up 2021 needs. Omio, plan, book, love the journey. Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. Today, this is one of our mental checkup episodes. Male mental health is something that we do not focus hard on. We're always worried about the female approach, and I'm not talking about the binaries and non-binaries. We deal with a hard press. A great example is, as a male, we're supposed to be very, very tough, very strong. And being strong and tough provides you with a fragile identity. And when you have a fragile identity, it invokes a certain type of aggression when we're threatened, even though we have to maintain a really strong masculine facade. And in doing these things, we hurt ourselves. We go further in life with this fragile identity, and we have to reassert certain things to make us feel like we have a certain type of manhood. We reassert so much, we do so much reassertion that eventually we lose our identity. And inside this, there's no outward way to come to someone to get help for something like that, because this is something that you've mined. Like if you worked in a coal mine, it's something that you've done and you've developed, and it's very hard to figure out how to get outside of this, because inside we build a masculinity, but we also have an outward masculinity, and that outward masculinity is something that has this thing that I follow, and it's called pressure. When you put pressure on things, it's you pushing on something, and then you get a reaction or a chain reaction, which is pressure given back. When pressure is asserted on you by someone else, it becomes a performative issue. It's kind of like, how far do I have to go? How far do I have to perform until this pressure is let off me? And in most cases, as men, we're not allowed to just sit back and deal with this stuff. We just have to roll with the punches and keep going. And the consequences that happen later on is we develop certain mental band-aids to just, I'll put a band-aid over this, or I'll patch it up like you patch a wall or something like that. And we never resolve the issues. And when we do not resolve these issues, sometimes people can go through their whole life and never have anything come about this. It just happens one day later on in life, like maybe, you go through 40 years of just being pressurized by something else, and it just pops out. And there's no way to fix it. There's nothing that you can do to fix this. And so it's really key that, now when we say it as early as age 2 to 72, you got to take some moment and figure out yourself sometimes. Like, even if it's just... Today's episode is brought to you by Omio. Omio is a travel booking platform that makes planning a journey in Europe and North America effortless. Just enter your travel details and Omio will magically give you all the train, bus, flight, and ferry options for your journey. It's never been simpler to book your first real vacation for 2021. Best of all, using Omio saves you time, money, and that's a winner in our books. Omio wants to help you leave your house this summer by offering 5% off your next booking. Just head to omio.com and use the code OMIO5 at checkout, valid until July 31st for new users on all modes of transportation. It's just the pick-me-up 2021 needs. Omio, plan, book, love the journey. Just like I tell people, for instance, I work an 8-hour day, but I'm up 12 to 16 hours. In that 12 to 16 hours, I've got 15 minutes of my life that's free. There's no person on earth that can tell me that they don't have 15 minutes free. You can break it up however you do, even if it's only 3-minute increments, or if it's 10 or 5, however you do it. Taking that 15 minutes and just Like, and it's not even a deal of like looking in the mirror or anything like that. It's just one of these deals where you just take 15 minutes, get to yourself, and just get right. Like, um, figuring out how to do some type of identity formation, because you get lost, like I said, in all that pressurization, and this stuff just turns out bad in the end. So for a mental health checkup on something like that, that's one of the relative things that I say, that's one thing that has to really stay in house. That's not something you're gonna, find in somebody or anything like that. It's something inside yourself that you'll have to just, you know, decide. Hey, how do I want to fix this? And what I want to, how do I want to attain this? And me personally, myself, when I had to get to a point where I started doing this stuff, and it started happening to me like around, I'll say 2021. I had to figure out what everyone brought to the table. I sat back and I was like, man, this person brings certain qualities, and these certain qualities I want to instill in myself. This person, we all have flaws. This person has certain qualities that are not what meet me at the table, or bring something to my table. So I want to see these qualities, and I want to grow from those qualities and make sure that these qualities don't become mine because they don't fit my system, you know? And not so much to help somebody with those qualities that I deem not necessary for me, just like to see why they're not necessary for me, and then move along from there. That way, that's a mental growth right there. There's like, this right here doesn't pertain to me. I'll stay away from it, but I want to learn a little bit before I step away from it. So that's a thing right there. Um, and the other thing that we have to do as a man and as a whole is we cannot gender restrict our feelings. You gender restrict what you're doing, and that's where this whole fragile identity crap comes up. And then, if you allow this to happen, you put yourself in a certain type of spectrum, and people will follow the spectrum. When you have a spectrum, that's something that's a continuum of the actions you put out there that the people see, and the people take that influence inside, and they're like, whoa, this is what person A does, and this is how person A deals with this. They did it on Monday like this. They need to keep doing this through the next 4 or 5 Mondays. So it's one of those things where you have to be very careful in your spectrum when you're handling this type of stuff. And like I said, all this stuff is a minor 3 minutes in one day, or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, just looking at like little small things, and like, just retrospective looks. And when you do these things, it's not like it happens on day one or happens on day 72. You start seeing little things, and then you start catching yourself, when you're in an act of something that was hurting you. You see the act, and you're like, oh, let me stop. Let me move away from this. And it brings you a sense of calm. And that's one thing like that I always just say, like with the whole us checking up on ourselves and us taking time for our mental, just take that time. And if you take that time, it works out. Um, and if you have different factors that make it to where you can't, you have to consider your roles in life. Like for instance, where the spectrum fall, a male is considered the provider, protector, and even a fighter. A woman is supposed to be and this is the supposed to be the nester or nurturer, and a supporter. And since we have made these gender specific roles, some people, definitely keep to these things, and it's fine to do these things if that's how you do it in your ecosystem. But putting those gender specific ideas in place, falters the one thought that everybody's supposed to be equal in the whole mental sense. And when we do this kind of stuff, like it really, as a man, I've noticed like certain things and certain acts discourage me. Like they just make me not want to express my feelings, and then I suppress them. And that suppression is something that, in some households you're taught that. And that suppression gets deeper and deeper, and it becomes like a grave. It puts you in a casket and puts dirt over you every time you have, these type of, things happen that discourage you. Discouraging acts, discouraging remarks, discouraging anything, is something that we're not taught to gauge. We can all put up this fence or this facade that, oh, I'm all right. But when something discourages you, just like I've been discouraged in some things, I even got discouraged at a job not too long ago. I was at a job and certain things happened. And once I felt discouraged, I didn't follow the proper acts of just calming down and channel it because I felt like I was wronged, I was wronged, I was wronged. And I was wrong on certain things, but me as a person, I decided to just reject the help that was given out there to stay in place at this job, and I just left and went home because I didn't feel I was discouraged, and when I felt discouraged, I felt that there was no other way to make it right but right under my own pretense. So once again, that discouraging thing is something that we're not taught to cope with and not how to deal with that. So that's one thing. Like I can't just sit here and tell you how to deal with discouragement because like I'm a work in progress on that every single day. Like if I get discouraged by something, man, you got to be careful around me because if I get discouraged, like I got to figure out how to build myself up, how to fix that. So that's the one part of the being a man or being a woman thing that is hard to deal with. Now, on to a lighter note, simple exercise, and we're not talking about like I'm not talking about like the physical exercise, like a simple exercise. Um, One thing that I do, I try to find a word that's going to express what I'm going to be for that day. If I'm going to be lazy, I'm going to be lazy. If I'm not going to be lazy, then I'm going to be studious. I'm going to study something, um, or just something that degree. I don't allow fantasy things like video games or anything like that to tie into my day, but I try to like just figure out something to keep me on a flat plane in my mental world. Um, and that's the other thing that we talked about a few weeks ago. Your mental plane to someone else's mental plane are going to be completely different. So, in the next go round, when we have this July mental checkup, we'll talk about that mental plane again because uh, that's been like a real hard thing that people have commented on and have they kind of made fun of me a little bit about it because I said this one thing. How are you going to tell someone that they don't have their own mental plane? No one is built the same. If we were all built the same, we would be androids, but we're not all built the same. Or we would be Apple products. We're not all built the same. We're functioning, structured people that have emotions, that have feelings, and we warrant the same thing in return. Just in different capacities. And that's the hardest thing to understand. So, on the note that I want to leave you on is this, and this is where I'm going to challenge you. Look at your disadvantages. Look at your misadvantages. So, your disadvantages would hold you back. Your misadvantages are the things that create the social pattern that follows you. And see where it stopped connecting. Look at the one day, go back and see when it all went astray or went a way that wasn't comparable to the life you had before. And if you do that, I know we don't want to stay too long in retrospect, but if you do that, that right there is the first key to seeing what's going on and how to fix it. Once again, guys, it's me, JR. Thank you for listening to West Virginia Commonplace. I'll definitely be back with another mental health checkup in July sometime. You guys just keep doing what you're doing and subscribe. And I want to thank you all for just listening.